continent of Africa. Today is not today that we'll talk about that, but some of those things are still being carried out today. But it's all based on a lie. So leaving Hereford, North Carolina, I went to DeVry Institute in Atlanta, where I studied electronics there. I graduated top of my class. Then I went to work for IBM doing research and development in Yorktown Heights in New York for a little while. I left IBM and I went to Silicon Valley, and I worked for a company called Applied Materials, who designed semiconductor reactors. And I worked in their division called Etch. I was the Etch product specialist there for about 10 years. I was responsible for everything from Maine to Florida when it came to their technology in the semiconductor business. So in around 1998, I opened my own company, East Coast Semiconductor Solutions, which we refurbished semiconductor equipment. That's the equipment used to make computer chips. And I worked that business for about 4 or 5 years. I think on my third year, I think I may have been doing about $3.5 million a year. And before that, I started buying rental properties in North Carolina. I had gotten to the point where I had accumulated about 26 rental properties. And I started a construction company later called T-Square Developers, where we built houses and sold them for about 30% below market, because it's important that as we come into power and financial independency, that we give it back to our community. If you are not giving back to your community, then you cannot claim Africanhood. You cannot claim it, because it's part of our natural way to give back to our people. This is the only way we can lift our people out of poverty. This is the only way we can build ourselves as a nation. So, based on my background, I met a professor, Dr. Jahi Issa, who took me to Ghana for the first time. My father was in New York. My mother at that time, early on in my life, was also in New York. My father was a big fan of J.J. Rollins. I know that you guys know who he is, and Kwame Nkrumah. So my father started introducing me to these people very early on. I was about 11 years old, and I used to hear him talk about these great men all the time. So I was inspired to go to Africa, and Dr. Issa took me on my first trip. But prior to me going, of course, I met the great Dr. Kof and Dr. Dodo, and they had inspired me so much about Africa. We had been working very close together for how many years now? Many years, right? Many years we've worked very, very close together. And also, the political side of this whole thing is that I'm always very engaged and very involved in the political arena wherever I go, as I am in Durham. Used to be in Durham, but certainly in Ghana now. We were responsible for getting first black mayors elected in some of the small towns in northeastern North Carolina, Hosky, Hereford, North Carolina. We're very involved with those processes. And so, with that being said, I started going to Ghana about 4 years ago. And I have made 28 trips to Ghana. No, 29 trips to Ghana in the past 4.5 years or so. And I have opened my company there called Fathom Minerals Enterprise. Fathom Minerals Enterprise is the name of my company that I have opened in Durham. Durham, I keep saying Durham. in Ghana. And I'm very excited about what's happening and what we're doing over there. So I want to just chat with you. And if you want to stop me and ask questions, you can, but I want to chat with you because I'm a student, I'm a global student, and I'm very, very involved with the economic development all across the world. Very, very involved with that. When I say very involved, I study it. I've traveled through Southeast Asia, mostly. Of course, now I'm traveling in Africa, South America. I visited these places, and I do a lot of intimate study on the economic situations. And this is also the other reason why I went into Ghana, which we'll talk about in a minute. So when I first get into Ghana, I go into an area called Jamestown. Jamestown is very big, was very big back in the day with the slave trade. And so as I'm coming there, some of my friends are introducing me to some of the elders that are in Jamestown. And so as I meet the elders, they tell me some interesting things. One of the first things that really struck me is that they said, "We knew you would return." I want to say this again. They said, we knew you would return. Now, they weren't talking about me specifically, but they were talking about a spirit that's in me that was a part of our collective Africanness. So as I sat there and I listened to these elders talk to me, and they may have been 80, 85 years old, there was about 3 of them. They said that our grandmothers and our grandfathers always talked about your return. They talked about the great ones that were kidnapped and taken off of the continent and taken by ship into strange lands to do things for the Europeans. This is what they were telling me. And they said that we knew you would return. When they said that, it changed my reasoning for coming to Ghana. It changed my reasoning for wanting to be on the continent. Because what they were telling me is that I had an obligation. I had a duty. No matter how big I am or how small I am, I have an obligation to my people on the continent. They were also telling me that there's no way that the continent can be free. There's no way that even you can be free unless you're back on the continent. And I'm speaking to you as Africans. One of the things that I learned immediately is that I learned what Malcolm X meant when he was in Oxford in the 60s debating. And there was a black guy on a panel with him. And the black guy said to Malcolm, I don't have no reason to go to Africa. Malcolm looked at him and said, you left your mind in Africa. I left my mind in Africa. Me. And I discovered it when I went back. I thought I was a knowledgeable person. I thought I had a good understanding of what was happening. I thought I had my pulse on the world. But when they told me that, based on what Malcolm said, I started to realize when I went into certain parts of West Africa and I saw my aunties, my uncles, my cousins, all of my family members I saw in West Africa. So now I'm understanding, man, I left my mind in Africa, my spirit in Africa, my ancestors in Africa. How do I better understand myself if I'm not on the continent? I'm saying this to you because I'm also inviting you to go and get your mind. The other side of this is that many of us that are from Africa, born on a continent, we come into America and we lose our minds. We lose our traditional understanding of our culture, and we take on the mindset of the oppressor. Very dangerous, very toxic, and very destructive for our community. Let me just talk to you a little bit. You look in the Ivory Coast today, Côte d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara. Isn't he your president?
No.
He's not. Good answer. You see the lady beside him?
Yeah.
Where is she from? She's from France. French are still controlling the Ivory Coast. Let me just talk. Even they're showing you that you don't control anything. Sure, you export and you're the largest producer of cocoa. Sure you are. But look at who's on his arm. A white woman that was given to him by the French for the purpose of making sure that the French interest is carried out. 1960, you got your independence. Ivory Coast. Are you really independent?
No.
Of course not. 1957, Ghana gets its independence. My great uncle, Kwame Nkrumah. But Ghana is not independent. Let me show you why. 2 years ago, Ghana discovered one of the most valuable minerals on the earth today. It's called lithium. The United States, California specifically, just passed legislation saying that by 2026, 35% of all vehicles sold in California have to be electric. Now, what does that mean? That means that the lithium industry will boom. The Australian company is mining lithium in Ghana because Ghanaians are not independent. 26.83 square kilometers of raw lithium. And an Australian company is mining the lithium. That is an example of classic colonialism. That is an example of a people that are still dependent. Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, you were no different. You're worse. You're worse. Look at your gold. Look at your diamonds. Look at your rubber. All of your raw materials. White corporations are mining and controlling them. These are very impoverished Western nations. But white companies are controlling your natural minerals and resources. 62% of all of the world's resources, not some of the world's resources, are on the continent of Africa. 62%. Now, what does this mean? Now, you heard me mention lithium. By 2026, 35% of all the cars in California. Rest assured that North Carolina will pick up that legislation. Wyoming, Chicago, all Texas, they will all pick up the legislation. So where should you be investing your money? In lithium. Now you understand why I have Fathom Minerals Enterprise on the continent of Africa. Listen, hold on a second. Yes, listen to me real good. The United States of America, I'm coming back to Cote d'Ivoire. The United States of America is failing. Now, I know you, as Africans that come here from Africa, I know how y'all think. You can sit here and act like you don't think like this all you want. You love America. You love America. You don't have to agree with me today. I know you. Listen, every African, they're willing to die, dig graves for their parents to come to America. What a foolish idea. Now, I'm saying that because all of the resources, 62%, are on the continent. The American dollar is falling. The only thing that kept the American dollar suspended for as long as it has been is something called the petrodollar. The petrodollar, the agreement with Saudi Arabia and OPEC last year was not renewed. That means that countries no longer have to use the dollar to purchase oil. The dollar is not backed by gold anymore. It came off the gold standard in 1971. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are working on de-dollarizing the entire world. I have to talk about these things because I don't get a chance to come before you much. So I have to give you as much as I can in the 30 minutes that I was given. I'm asking that you please pay attention, take note mentally, and research what I'm sharing with you. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS. They represent 37% of the world's population right now with the 5 countries. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia just signed on, representing about 50% of the world's population. Listen at me real good. 50% of the world's population. If they allow the other 12 nations to join on, they will represent 75% of the world's population. 75% of the world's population will be represented by BRICS. BRICS is working on a currency that is backed by gold. 30% of all the world's gold is coming from Africa. Ghana and South Africa used to be the #1 producer of gold in the world. They used to be. The largest producer of gold in the world now is China. Why is China number one? Because China is getting all of their gold from Africa. Why is this important? Because any new currency that's coming on the scene, whether you be a follower of cryptocurrency, whether you be a follower of BRICS currency, all of it has to be backed by gold. Is Cote d'Ivoire gold rich?
Oh, yeah.
Say it, is Cote d'Ivoire gold rich? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then why the hell are you here? Is Ghana gold rich? Yes or no?
Yes.
Most of Africa is gold rich. If Africa is so rich in resources, tell me, family, why are we here? America is, I know why you're here, because you love America. I'm going to go even a step further. You can get angry at me. I hope you see already, I don't care. You, not only do you love America, you love white people. You're scared to leave them. Listen, it's okay. I talk like this everywhere I go. Listen at this. Here's the thing that I'm trying to share with you. If California is saying that by 26, 35% of all the new cars sold has to be electric, meaning they'll be using lithium batteries, and we know it's going to spread across the United States of America. If we know Africa is lithium rich, if we know that all currency would have to be backed by gold, then why are we not investing back at home? Okay, stop, stay there for a second. According to Jack Dorsey in 2019, Jack Dorsey said in 2019, whoever controlled the resources in Africa would do what? Control the world. Whoever controls the resources in Africa will control the world. Now notice the language. He didn't say whoever controls the resources in Brazil. He didn't say whoever controls the resources in the United States of America. He didn't say whoever controls it in the UK. He said whoever controls the resources in Africa will control the world. Why aren't we in Africa? Because you love white people. You don't want to own this, but you're so fixated and indoctrinated with the idea of being close to the European, you will abandon your own resources and come here and suffer. I know you. You ain't got to give me no props. I know you. Listen at me. If Jack Dorsey said that, and then in 2022, Elon Musk was doing an interview. Elon Musk said he highly recommends that whoever goes in business today go in the lithium business. Why was he saying that? That's exactly why he's saying that. This is why he's saying that. Now listen at this. By 2050, 30% of the world's population will be in Africa. Africa has 1.4 billion people on the continent. By the year 2050, Africa will have 2.5 billion people on the continent. The world is going to Africa. Then in addition to that, by the end of this century, we'll reach 4.5 billion people on the continent. Bill Gates is there. IBM is there. Google are there. You know why? Because they're preparing for the boom. They are preparing for the boom that's going to occur with 4.5 billion people by the end of the century that are on the continent, and the average age will be 19. Can you imagine as a business person having somebody from the age of 19 until they die as a client or a customer? When you look at the average age in Europe and China and Japan and places like that, it's over 40 years. You're telling me that by 2050, the average age on the continent with 2.5 billion people at that time will be 19 years of age? Yes. The economic boom is there, but they don't want you to participate in it. This is why Alassane, your supposed president, Ouattara, this is why he allowed the French to put their second largest ship in the Gulf of Guinea on the Ivory Coast. This is why he allowed them to do it. Because he is a puppet for the French. And the French are trying to intimidate you because they do not want you to gain the control that your brother in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, has. They do not want you to gain that level of control. And because they don't want you to gain that level of control, they put the second largest warship. And the French said the reason why they're there is for piracy, illegal fishing, and the drug trade. Now listen at that. Who runs the drug trade? The French. The French for 45 years ran the opium fields that are in Vietnam. For 45 years they ran them. The French are experts when it comes to drug dealing. You won't find any better drug dealer than the French. For 45 years in Vietnam, the purest opium is from Vietnam to Afghanistan. The purest opium. The French ran that because they were fighting illegal wars. Then the United States of America told the French, it's time for you to go. We got to get that. Then America ran it up into 1965. All the opium, hooking the soldiers on opium so that they would bring it back into their community. They would be naturally hooked on the opium. See, I can talk about this because I know I spent time in Vietnam. Not as a soldier fighting for America, but as a student of the world, a global student. I spent time in Vietnam, so I know what I'm talking about. Nobody told me this. I was there. I worked with soldiers. I talked with the soldiers, so I know what time it is as it relates to that. Now let's get back to you. The importance of you understanding this is this. Now, America and the French. Now remember, Africa is still colonized. Remember, the neo-colonialism is real. They don't have to be right there, but they have the policies in place. Get back to West Africa with Cote d'Ivoire and the other 13 countries, colonies that are still controlled by the French, where it used to be that 85% of all of your banking had to go into the French central bank. Now it's 50% of all of your money got to go into the French central bank. And if you want to borrow your money, you got to borrow that. You can borrow 15% of your money at interest. Did you hear what I just said? Now imagine you having $100,000 in the bank, but you have to send it to Dr. Dodo. 50% of it today, you got to send it to her, right? And if you needed to borrow the money, borrow your own money, they're going to charge you interest. This is what's happening in West Africa. All 14 of those colonies got their independence in 1960. It was your president back then, I call him Felix Beignet, but you call him Barnier or Barnier. Yeah, Barnier. You call him Barnier, I call him Barnier. 60%, 1960, when they got their independence. Freedom, supposedly, independence, supposedly, but you were only independent to be dependent upon the French. They still control everything. Now, I'm saying a lot, so let me clean some of this up. I want you to take 3 letters with you before you leave. Those 3 letters are S-E-E. Does anybody know what S-E-E is? C, right? The areas of focus that we need to overcome this is going to be C. We don't want to complicate it. The reason why you don't want to complicate it, because when you complicate things, it makes it difficult for people to make adjustments, and they shy away. C, S-E-E. The S is spirituality. It's important that you understand this. Spirituality is the most crucial aspect for an African. I want to say this again. Spirituality is the most crucial aspect for an African. Nothing else is higher for an African than spirituality, because we are naturally a spiritual people. Am I right or wrong? Dr. John Hendrick Clark, he says in his writings that the most spiritual people on the face of the earth are Africans. Then Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop says the same thing. Now, and then my melanin scientist sister here, she has told me the same thing. Were you lying? Of course not. Of course not. You were not lying, right? We're the most spiritual people on the face of the earth. That's why the European attacked us spiritually first. When you go to the slave dungeons, there's a church on top of the slave dungeon. where they indoctrinate you with this false concept of Christianity. Now, let me remind y'all, Christianity at the root and at the base is an African religion, but not the form you practice today. But the basis of Christianity, the basis of Islam, all of it is African. All of it. Now, spirituality is important because they corrupted our existence by removing our natural spiritual system away from us. And once they removed our natural spiritual system, it was easy for them to arrest us, lock us up, and make us slaves. So the first order of business in SEE is to reobtain your spirituality. Islam, as much as I'm a student of Islam, in its current form will not get you there. Please don't be offended. Christianity in its current form will not get you there. Please don't be offended. I am a student. Let me give you this story real quick and I'm going to keep moving. Even though my ancestors were brought here as slaves, our ancestors still practice that old African spiritual science without really knowing it. I'll give you a story. I got to give you this and then I'll move. When I was a little boy, one of my cousins was sick. I don't remember which cousin it was. They couldn't use the bathroom, right? We didn't know it at the time. But the baby was crying for a week, nonstop, every night. My grandmother didn't know what was going on. So my grandmother took the baby to the doctor. The doctor could not figure out what was going on. They called my grandmother Peaches. They said, Peaches, I don't know what's going on. So my grandmother called my aunt. Her name is T-Night. And when she called her over, T-Night said, I can't come because it's snowing outside. I want you to hear this very well. She said, it's snowing outside. I can't drive in the snow. So my aunt T-Night said, I'll tell you what. She said, Peaches, what's wrong with the baby? My grandmother, she just won't stop crying. So my cousin T-Night said, Peaches, my aunt, Peaches, take the phone, lay the baby on the back, lay the baby down on the back, put the phone on the baby's stomach. Now I want you to hear this. I saw this. My auntie started to pray. Are you listening? And as she started to pray, everything in the baby's stomach was released. And the baby stopped crying. This is part of the African spiritual system that we've gotten away from, but we need to go back to. The problem here is that through Christianity and Islam, it teaches us that God is out there somewhere, where in reality, the Spirit of God is on the inside of us. This is the African traditional way. How do I know this? Because I'm there and I'm studying. Every single day, I'm studying. I'm with the elders. I'm understanding how they're doing things. So, in saying that, spirituality is very important. We got to go back to our natural spiritual system. That's number one. The next part of it is education. So we're talking about S-E-E, right? Spirituality. The next one is education. This is the focus that I'm suggesting and recommending to the distinguished group that's here today. These are the things that you need to focus on. I'm also basing this on historical facts. Do you know that 50 years ago, China, only 98% of China was functionally illiterate? 98% of China was functionally illiterate. Now 99% of them are literate. Listen, China brought 800 million people out of poverty in less than 50 years. A lot of this was based on the teaching of Mao Zedong. I don't know if you've ever read the Red Book. A lot of this was based upon his teaching. He set the pace. China did it without the resources that Africa has. If China can do it with less resources, what is our problem? We become a bunch of buffoons. When I say we, I'm talking about me too. I'm involved. I'm not exempting myself from this, but I'm saying that we got to act like we really want to save our people. And you can't do it here in the United States of America, acting like the European. You will never free our people. How many of you have heard of Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore? Lee Kuan Yew. You never heard of him? He brought 1 million people out of poverty in less than 40 years. Of Singapore, they got their independence from Malaysia in 1965. In 1965, they got their independence from Malaysia. Go to d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, got their independence in 1960, and they haven't been able to get close to what Singapore has been able to do. Why? Because you're still slaves. Please don't be offended. You are still slaves. How can you tell a slave? Because he takes on the identity of a slave master. He doesn't do what's best for his own people. He thinks of himself only. He's only concerned about a nice house and a nice car. He's not concerned about the masses of his people. He's a slave. How can you tell a slave? Because the slave continues to work for the slave master. America is the slave master, and you're continuing to work here for her. This is how I know you're slaves. And as long as you're here in this system, you can never become anything greater than a slave. Because the system is designed to make you a slave. Get outside of yourself for a minute. Step outside of your flesh for a minute and look down at yourself and look at how you're leading your life and tell me you're not a slave. You can't. You can't. I'll spin circles all around you, proving to you that you're a slave. When I say you, I'm talking about me too, because none of us can be free until our people are free. None of us can be. Now, so if Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore in 1965 broke away from Indonesia and lifted 1 million people out of poverty, if China lived 850 million people out of poverty in 50 years, why is the Ivory Coast so poor? I'm going to tell you why. I get on these two, I love them. This is my sister, this is my brother. I love them, right? And I'll sacrifice for them. But listen, the reason why the Ivory Coast is so poor, because great thinkers like this one and like this one are not there. They're not there. The great thinkers like all of you who are very knowledgeable in your craft, you're still here. Why? Listen, please don't be angry and don't chase me to my car, because I have a lot of guns in my car. So don't chase me. You're here because you're a slave. That's why you're here. And it's hard for you to leave your slave master. That's why your president got one on his arm. You understand? This is what we're suffering from. Now let me wind this thing down. Spirituality, education. How do we fix the educational system in the Ivory Coast? Let me tell you what we're doing in Ghana. So in Ghana, we have teamed up with the Kwame Nkrumah Socialist School that's based in Kaswa. How many of you have ever been to Ghana? Anybody? Okay, beautiful. In Kaswa, there's the Kwame Nkrumah Socialist School that's there. That the curriculum is based on the philosophy of Kwame Nkrumah. So what we've done is partnered with them. Me and two other guys. We partnered with them, and we're taking their curriculum. We're building a school in Bogotanga, near Tamale. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Because what they're teaching is a philosophy and a concept that moves them away from colonization. They're not using a Eurocentric standard. And when I went to the school for the first time, I heard some of the students, I was blown away at the way they were able to articulate their points. And I studied their averages. They're much above the national average. So we're building a school in Bogotanga, north of Tamale, near Tamale in Ghana. Why am I telling you this? Because the way you change the Ivory Coast is one mind at a time. If you allow the Ivory Coast to continue to exist the way it exists, you'll continue to allow your people to become slaves. I am saying that those of you that are here, great PhDs and scientists, go build a school. You know it doesn't take that much money. Build a school. And when you build a school, sponsor the curriculum. I'm talking to build a school in Ghana. It may take $20,000 to build a structure. Now you bring the curriculum in. Okay, $35,000 to build a structure. All right, the way they build the schools in Ghana, you can get away with $35,000. Bring your curriculum in and teach an African-centered education. What does an African-centered education look like? How much time do I have? I'm not keeping. Okay. What does an African-centered education look like? In 1860s, in the United States of America, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, cotton was the cash crop. The big crop was cotton and tobacco. But I want to talk specifically about cotton. In the 1860s, 60% of the world's cotton was coming from the United States of America. 60%. 70% of all the cotton that Europe consumed was coming from the United States of America. So what the United States of America did is build schools centered around the production of cotton. You learned about cotton in the educational system. You learned about tobacco in an education. This was a cotton-centered educational curriculum that they developed. Now, in Cote d'Ivoire, in West Africa, why don't you build schools and make gold the center of the education? Now, you can say, well, gold is just currency. That's a lie. Gold is in your smartphones, these smartphones you have here. Then you have something in them called tantalum. You have something in them called cobalt, which comes from the Congo, where about 80% of all the world's cobalt comes from the Congo. Your education should be centered around your resources. If America could do it in the 1860s with the low-level technology that they had, why can't you do it in 2024? Why can't your school be centered around the natural resources that's under your feet in the Ivory Coast? Why? It has to be an African-centered education with resources at the top and the accomplishments of our ancestors and our people right in the middle. You cannot separate the two. It has to be done, and it has to be done immediately. Now, let me give you these 5 more minutes and I'm out of here. Now, your African-centered education will cause the people that are there to stay there because they'll be able to get jobs and create jobs based on the resources. And I want to share with you again now, remember, gold is going to be the new currency. Any currency that's going to be, that carry any weight has to be backed by gold.
God
Bricks.
Money. God money.
God money. Bricks. That's my cousin. No, you're fine.
God money.
God money. Bricks is introducing a system where the currency will be backed by gold. They just destroyed the SWIFT banking system because they introduced their own system. This whole thing is to get away from the European mindset. His mindset will no longer be able to exist in the world. They're moving him out of the way. Now, if gold is so crucial and gold is common and popular in West Africa, our education should be centered around the gold. Can we develop better smartphones with gold? Can we develop better medical equipment with gold? These are the areas that we need to start going in. All smartphones have gold in them. Cobalt, tantalum, which are resources that are very common on the African continent. So now your education ties into your economics. The last part of C. Spirituality, education, economics. They have to marry. And you don't want to complicate it too much. So if your currency is backed by gold, which Burkina Faso, my great brother Ibrahim Traoré, is working on, right? Backing his currency by gold. Now Ghana introduced a gold coin. We're looking to the day where all 54 African countries are working off of one currency, but they just introduced a gold coin. They're moving in that direction, but you're still here. And this is the troubling part, because those of you that are here are highly intellectual, I think, right? This is what you told me. Yeah, highly intellectual. Right? Now, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm just being honest with you as your brother, right? I know you. I've been around you. I know who you are. You know, and so in saying that, We have to restructure our thinking. Now, the other part of economics is this. You have to develop a relationship with a foreign interest. And I am saying the best candidate right now, whether you like it or not, is China. We have to develop a relationship, we as Africans. We have to develop a relationship with China. Now, I know that China is pushing the Bridge Road Initiative heavy in West Africa and East Africa. China is pushing the Bridge and Road Initiative. Yes, sir.
Can you explain the bridge and road?
Yeah. So
That's what I want.
yeah. Belt Road Initiative. Thank you.
I want them to hear.
So the initiative is that China will loan you money to build bridges, roads, belts, roads, in exchange for you giving them access to their resources, to your resources. There's nothing wrong with that because they're doing it at rates less expensive than the European. You understand? Now, China brings their own team in. But now what has to be a part of the negotiations is that not just your team, but you have to train local teammates to participate in this process so that we can move you out of the picture. So I am saying the best country to team up with, hands down, is China. Because China has the resources right now. Ibrahim Traore, he's getting his weaponry from China. He's getting it from Russia. Because they have the best resources. But we have to be careful with the Russians. We have to be very careful with the Russians, especially the Wagner Group. They're killing thousands of people throughout Angola, throughout Sudan. The Wagner Group from Russia, they are, I don't know if you've been reading any of the reports, but they're killing thousands of people. We have to be very careful with them. America and Europe are bombing Africa. China is building Africa. We have to focus on the building side. Now here's the last part to economics. Côte d'Ivoire specifically has about 39 million people. Their gross national product is about $80 billion. The top country in the world in terms of economics is the United States of America, hands down, $25 trillion a year. Next to the United States of America would be China, about $15 trillion a year. Then you have Germany, around $6 trillion. Then Japan is around $5 trillion, $5.5 trillion, and India is somewhere around $4.8 trillion.
Germany has dropped a little bit.
Pardon?
Germany has dropped in.
Germany has dropped. But they're in the top 5, right? Germany and Japan might go back and forth. India is in that mix. Do you know who number 11 is? Roughly. The African Americans in the United States of America. $1.5 trillion in buying power. Now, why is this important? Remember what the elders told me when I went over there. We knew you were coming back. So now we have to find a way to incentivize the African American. Because we're African. You can take it or let it alone. We're African. You can't take that from us. And I make the argument with them all the time. I'm just as much African as you, if not more. Now, look at this. If we have the buying power of $1.5 trillion, that puts us in a great position economically. I am not saying the whole 1.5 trillion go there, but you can talk to people and start forming relationships with people and start building economic relationships with people so that you can do business over there. What's wrong with that? When I'm in Ghana, the Indians from East Asia, the Indians from Asia, they coming over with duffel bags filled with money, walking through the airport like this. Chinese are the same way. You know, in Ghana, you can carry as much money as you want. Nobody will bother you. The government won't bother you. You have unlimited money. When I'm from the United States, you can only take $10,000 in without special permission. But once you get to Ghana, if you got $40 million, you can walk. You can carry as much money as you want. The Chinese are going up north near Bogotá. The purest gold refinery in Ghana is in an area called Wale Wale, which is around Bogotá. The Chinese bought that land, so they say. They don't allow Ghanaians to come and get gold out of there anymore. That land produces only 24 karat. only 24 karat. Throughout most of Ghana, you'll get 21 and 22 karat. They're doing 24 karat gold. They're pulling it out of the ground and taking it back to China. That's why China is the leading producer of gold in the world today, because of what they're getting from out of Wali Wali. Now, if the Chinese can do it and the Indians can do it, why can't we do it? I can go around this room right now, right, and we can raise $20,000 real quick at the start. I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying. I know that y'all are capable, right? So why can't we do that? That's the approach that we want to take. Remember, S-E-E, spirituality, education, economics is very important. You don't want to make it complicated. It's something that's easy to remember. It's a system that we're working in Ghana right now as we speak. We're developing relationships with the Ghanaians as we speak. But do you know what the Ghanaian government is trying to do? Now, Ibrahim Traoré just told all foreign corporations that's buying gold, get out. You cannot be in West Africa and Burkina Faso. Get out. Because he realized that they were losing too much money. All of the gold, they're not benefiting from it. The locals need to be the primary beneficiaries. In Ghana, you have something called galamsey. They call it illegal mining, which is wrong. And the Ghanaian government now is trying to prevent local Ghanaians, which they do during election time anyway, local Ghanaians from mining. They're trying to, right? And they want large corporations to come in and mine. What they're telling the local Ghanaians, look, y'all can't mine anymore. We want these white boys to come in here and mine. Remember now, we're all slaves. We want these white boys to come in here and mine. And the Chinese tried to get the Ghanaian government in 2018 to let them be the only miners in Ghana. They kicked the legislation back, but we don't know what might happen in the next few years, right? But the point is, illegal mining is becoming a real issue in Ghana. So if you don't have a company specifically for mining, you will not be able to mine on the continent anymore. Let me summarize what I've said in a nutshell. What am I telling you? That this brain drain that's left Ghana, left Africa, and came into the United States of America has to stop. It started with slavery. Some of the best they took off the continent, which were your brothers and your sisters and your cousins and your nieces and your nephews. They took us off the continent. Some of the best the world had to produce were on that continent. And the European came in and pulled us off. Brain drain. Now some of the best, which are here today, you've been taken off the continent. You voluntarily walked off the continent. You didn't know. We're not going to hold it against you. You didn't know. But now that you know better, you got to do better. You have a responsibility and an obligation to go back home, man. Free your people. You're the only people that aren't working in unison to bring freedom to your people. You're the only people that are not doing it. The Chinese government slowed down the number of people that were coming to the United States of America because they needed those resources in China, built in China. Lee Kuan Yew changed how they do business in Singapore. India asked all of their high-tech scientists to come back home and build India. Now I'm asking you, it's time for us to come back home. It's time for us to build Cote d'Ivoire, to build Ghana, to develop relationship with the Kenyans, with the Ethiopians, with the Egyptians, with the Nigerians, with the South Africans. Julius Malema needs help. He needs people that understands the system to be helping him. And I am saying the responsibility of us is to do just that. But don't worry because your ancestors are here. Your ancestors are with you. You don't have to worry, man. Whatever you desire, it's going to come because we've been calling on the ancestors for years. Now, here is how it looked. You've heard of Harriet Tubman. We called on her today. She's here. Don't worry, she's here. Now, she would go up to a 300-pound man, 6'8", 6'7", and said, you know what? We're going to escape tonight. At 6:30, I'm coming to get you. That 300-pound man would look at her and say, I ain't going nowhere, Harriet. My master good to me. What am I going to leave my master for? This idiot was so screwed up that he didn't recognize the importance of independence and freedom. He was more attached to the ways of the slave master than he was independence and freedom. I'm asking you the same question. Family, we're going to escape. We're going to run away from here. We're going to go back home. Will you join me? You don't have to answer. It's okay. I know I've said a lot, but I would like to take this opportunity to just take a couple of questions and be done with it. But let me just say this lastly. Everything has to change. Everything. The way we see life has been out of the lenses of our oppressor. Our thinking, our diet, the way we act in relationships. We've gotten all of this from our wicked oppressor. I am begging you. We are God's first creation. Argue with me if you want. We're God's first creation. Why are we acting like this? This is our earth, man. This is our world. We have allowed a child. The European, he's a child. Why are we allowing him to run us? My cousin, he's on fire.
How we get it to the masses?
Who?
The masses.
How do we get it to him? Well, that's what this is all about. It has to be an incremental process, right? We start, we take these concepts back, we utilize these concepts. The way that I'm talking to you right now is the same way I talk in Ghana. I don't talk any different. I don't sugarcoat it. They would tell you, they would come and join us on Sundays. We have these study sessions just like this. It's no different. So you have to get it to the masses. You're correct. You have to get it to the masses. It's very, very important. And you have to be willing to take risks and take chances as it relates to the progression of our people. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for being here today. In the words of encouragement in business and economics, truly, thank you so much for that. Now, you know we are going into election season.
Sure.
You know.
Now careful now because I'm very honest. Okay, go ahead.
Here. Talk about Trump and how he says about immigrants coming in, and what is that gonna look like if he's in office, and what would that look like for our people here? Because he's talking about getting everybody out of here. That's not legal. So what are you telling our people when you have this study session with them, when you are in the community talking to them?
Now, I hope everybody understood her question. She said, the way Trump is talking about migrants, and some of the things that he's saying, what should we tell our people? Basically, is what you're asking.
Because they're scared.
Say it again?
They're scared. A lot of them are
Okay.
scared.
First of all, I will tell you that I believe that America is Babylon. That's number one. America is modern day Babylon. You can argue with me. But if you have a dollar, you look at the back of it, you'll see the signs there, especially with the pyramid and the waters and things of that nature. It's the greatest economy in the world, like Babylonia was back in the day. It's the mystery Babylon, according to the book of Genesis, chapter 13 and chapter 17. I firmly believe that. I also have done a lecture, I would encourage you to check it out, called The Biblical Prophecy of Donald Trump. The biblical prophecy on the Donald Trump. If you go to NCRBGZ, NCR, that's North Carolina, red, black, and green. NCRBGZ, and put in the search, Biblical Prophecy of Donald Trump. I talk about what Donald Trump represents. So Donald Trump is anti-immigrant. Very much so. And Donald Trump does not want illegal immigrants coming into the United States. Now, I have to tell you, I'm siding with him on that. I don't believe in illegal immigration. I also believe that we are here illegally. That's why I said be careful, because I'll open this thing up. We're here illegally. None of us asked to come here. I'm talking about the first diaspora. We didn't ask, we were kidnapped. Kidnapped. We're refugees, we're hostages, we're prisoners of war. So illegal immigration is wrong. I don't support that for those reasons. Now, Donald Trump and his approach, you know what he said. He said African countries are what? Shitholes. You remember the language that he used? He said African nations are shitholes. He don't want Africans coming here. I don't want Africans coming here. I support that effort. I don't want Africans here. I want Africans to stay at home, sister, because what we're doing is coming into Babylon, and Babylon is getting ready to fall. Let me answer her question like this. Please bear with me. In the book of Genesis, chapter 15, starting at verse 13. You're a Christian, right? Okay. So let me speak directly to you. The book of Genesis, chapter 15, verse 13 said that Abraham's seed will be a stranger in a land that's not their own for 400 years. After that, God will come and judge that nation and bring them out with great substance. America is under divine judgment. Do you understand what I'm saying? She's under divine judgment and chastisement right now as we speak. Those people that were going to be in bondage for 400 years are us. Now, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, at verse 68, it said that we were going to Egypt again by ship. Where did we come from? We came from Egypt. We migrated from Egypt, went into South Africa, and went into West Africa. That's our path. How did we get here? We got here on ships. We were sold as bondmen and bondwomen. But God promised, the God of our ancestors, not just any God, He promised that after 400 years, we're coming out. 2019 represents the 400-year sojourn in the United States of America. Now, there's another scripture that I want to introduce you to is 1 Corinthians chapter 15, read 50 through 55. It's talking about Trump and how when he comes on the scene, the dead will be raised incorruptible. We are the dead in the United States of America. We don't know our names. I told you my name is Tony Riddick. What a lie. My name is not Tony Riddick. We don't know our religion. We don't know our history. We don't know any of that. So what role does Donald Trump play? He represents an era in time where God's return is imminent and nobody can stop it. Donald Trump is a loser, a liar. He's wicked. He's horrible. And I'm going to tell you something else. Y'all look at me right here in front of you. He will be president again, according to the biblical prophecy. Now, if you want to call me and have a one-on-one with this biblical thing, I would love to do that because I teach this way. So he will be president again. There's nothing you can do about it because of the promises from our ancestors. And for those of you that don't give our ancestors any credence, the two scriptures that I just gave her, Genesis 15 and 13, Deuteronomy 28 and 68, are on the Luxor, the temples in Luxor, Egypt, on the pyramid walls. This is how serious this thing is. So that's how I answer that question. Any other questions before?
More of a quick comment.
Yeah.
On my part. I think, first of all, thank you for the great talk. But I wanted to assure you that if we are here as Ivorians, it's because we exactly want to return back or are already back. So our spirit is in Ivory Coast. That's all.
Amen.
That's why we're here. So we're preaching in the cathedral that we have already preached in.
Amen.
So I just wanted to assure you of that.
Yeah, just in fact that if we are, of course, we feel that we have got a long reason over here. Because back home, as we said, whether we there is the white people who are there who chase us out. Really. Most of us here, they are out because we chase out. Or meaning that we are not, if you go there back, you cannot do whatever you want. Or you cannot contribute. And once you want to contribute, you become the enemy. And if you are lucky, you are sent to jail. That's why we are here. And as I say, we are working how to get rid of that and go back. So
I say you just go back. You know what I mean? You just go back. You know, and the reason why this is so important is because if you think about it, we were just kidnapped. They didn't ask us to come here. They grabbed us and brought us here. I am saying that if we start using things and reasons not to go back, it'll be very hard to go back. Yeah. You have a question? Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? I said a lot, I only got 2 questions. You got a question, son?
Now, another question is, it's really good that you say, how we can connect to the African community.
Can you talk louder?
How can we connect? I think it's,
Okay.
How can we connect to bring this power that you say, that power, what we do, that we can mesh together as African English.
Okay, so Representative Brown is here. Durham is also known as a Black Wall Street. Historically, this is what Durham is known as. And before they ran that expressway down Pettigrew, black businesses on one side and white businesses were on the other side. You have Mutual Bank, you have Mechanic and Farmers Banks here. So there's a rich history in Durham with entrepreneurship. Representative Brown, I already know, can get you at least 20 to 30 people. Do you know Attorney Larry James Rogers? You know Attorney Rogers? Well, Larry Hall, Representative Larry Hall. These are friends of mine. I'm sure that we can get 20 to 50 African Americans here who have some capability, right? In an attempt to try to sit with you and look at how we can start structuring things. Now, we're working on a gold fund, where we can get with African Americans and Africans and sit down with them and have them investing in Africa through purchasing gold. And we're talking about giving them a 15 to 20% return, which you're very aware of. We're working hard to make that happen. I am saying the next meeting that you have, which should be next month, in my opinion, I am saying bring Representative Brown here, talk with her on bringing African Americans here to tap into that $1.4 trillion, because think about this, we need somewhere to put our money, because the stock market is not safe. It's not. So we need to be able to know the options that are available to hide the money from the stock market, because the stock market over the past 5 years has lost 30% of its value. It's going down, so we need to be able to put our monies in other places.
And what
Yes,
I do,
sir.
go right ahead. And also what I do is I will contact our black reps and senators that's here in Durham and Raleigh, and we can all come together, and also bring in our black economists that can come as well, and we can make that happen.
Absolutely. Sister.
I really like the C, and I feel like the education piece is a very, very important role. I have a 501c3 nonprofit. So the funding that I receive for the 501c3 comes from companies like Train Technologies, RTI, Lenovo. These companies support 501c3s because they do believe in the future and entrepreneurship and all of that. I think that there's all different types of professionals here, but we should focus really heavily on education because they will support. I feel like it's easier to get funding for education, and focusing on like the resources, like you said, and making the whole curriculum about, the resources. And then when we pitch it to different companies, then they all are buying into that. Because I don't really have too many people saying no about education. With young people want to support that.
Well, will they support the education on the continent?
They would
That's-
support
oh,
that.
okay.
They would support that, but they support that. I see that here, but then being able to have a piece of someone saying how we can expand this there. Are you gonna be comfortable with that? Are you gonna be comfortable with the thought of getting money from America here to support initiatives in Ghana?
Absolutely. Listen, let me just share something with you real briefly. I'm gonna put some people on the spot briefly. That guy back there, that's my little cousin. Yeah, he's my grandmother's grandson. And we all grew up together. My sister, cousin right here, we grew up together. We're very close. And our blood runs strong. I called my cousin one day because my beautiful scientist friends were working on some stuff.